Hey everyone, welcome to this practice. In this one, we're going to create a really cool program that is going to receive two numbers from the user, first and second number, and then also it's going to receive a third number from the user, and it's going to figure out how many numbers between the first and second number are divisible by the third number. So let me actually show you this in action, and I'll just explain the problem a little bit more. And as always, guys, if you want to fork this project, you can actually go to resources and click the link in there. It's going to take you to Replit, and you can just like fork the empty project file for yourself and start this, get this going. All right, so let's actually run this, and let me show you what do I mean by that. So the first number, let's enter a number. I'm just going to say 10, and the second one is going to be 20. All right, so then it's going to ask you how many, enter the divisible number. So the idea with this is that you're going to enter a number, and this program is going to check how many number between 10 and 20 are going to be divisible by this certain number you enter. So if I put 2, for example, we're going to get 6, right? So it's going to say there are 6 divisible numbers by 2 between 10 and 20, right? And if you think about it, that is right. That's 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20 itself. That's 6 numbers, right? So that's what I mean by this program. You know, again, it gets 2 numbers from the user and then gets a third number, which is the divisible number. And then it's going to find out how many numbers between the first 2 number that the user entered are divisible by the third number. And it shows the result. And one of the things that, you know, it would be cool if you guys try to implement this is to make sure that the second number needs to be like bigger than the first number. So you need to actually check that using a while loop to make sure that every time that user enters the first and second number, the second number has to be bigger before the program moves forward. All right, so again, try to figure this out, and as always, as I said, you can fork this project. If you click the link in a resource section, it's going to take you to Replit, and you can make a copy of this, and you can just start thinking about this. So try to imagine how you would do this. You want to use while loops, you want to use for loops, and you want to use modulo as well. To just figure this out. All right, guys, so let me know if you have any questions, and pause the video and let's move forward. All right, so the project that you're going to be forking is going to have the divisible inputs, so it's just going to make your life a lot easier, and it's going to have the divisible y. This is the third number that the user is going to import. All right, so let's go ahead and code this and see how we can actually solve this. So if you remember, the first thing we want to do is that we want to make sure the second number needs to be bigger than the first one. So this is a condition that we need to constantly check. And the best way to do this is just to use a while loop. And I'm going to drop a while loop right below these divisible inputs before we actually even go to the third input, right? So I'm just going to say while second number, okay, is smaller than the first one, first number u, right? We're going to say second number equals integer. So we're going to have another input, right? And we're going to say second number needs to be greater than the first. Please enter it again. And just like that, let's add that. Perfect. So basically what happened was that because we entered this while loop, whenever the second number, and again, this is while, right? So while the second number is smaller or less than the first one, it's gonna, loop through this condition. All right. So let's actually run this and see how this goes. For example, if I enter 10 and then put the second number maybe 2, it's going to say second number needs to be greater than the first. Please enter it again. I'm going to say, for example, 5. It's going to say the same thing until we go over 10 again, or like actually, yeah, there you go. So that's equal, right? So there you go. So again, that's that. So let's go ahead and clear this. So that first problem is solved, right? Second number needs to be bigger than the first number. All right. So we got the third number. Now let's actually see how do we actually code this. Okay. So the best way to actually do this, to divisible, in my opinion, like get this divisible numbers, because we need to count them. That's very important, because our objective is to display text at the end and say there are this many divisible numbers, between A and B number, right? So the best way to do this is just keep a count. And we've talked about keeping count. It's a pretty simple concept in Python. And what you do is you start with a variable. I'm just going to say divisible count equals 0. So we start with a 0 amount, and then after that we're just going to increase this count or increase this integer based on the stuff that happens in the program. So to figure out how many number are between how many divisible numbers are between these two numbers, I'm going to do a for loop. And the reason we're going to do for loop, and this is something I mentioned before, is that when you use a for loop, it's usually when you want to use it for a range, right? Because while loop is just for checking something over and over, certain condition over and over. But like for loops are checking, a range, checking a certain list or something like that. So that's why. And right now we have a range, right? So we have a range of the first and second number. So I'm going to use the for loop. So I'm just going to say for number in, we're going to use range, all right? And for the range, I'm going to use the first number, and for the second number, we're going to go second number. All right. Now, here's the thing. If I just leave it like this, what is going to happen is that, if you remember, we talked about range function. And the thing about range function is that it actually, the second number is not exactly that. For example, if you have a range that is, let's comment this out. If you have a range that is like, let's say, range, and then we got 10 and 20. This is technically not a range of 10 and 20. This is technically a range between 10 and 19, because the 20, the last number, actually doesn't count by itself. So what you need to do to actually solve this problem is you need to actually do a +1. So that's how you actually fix that problem. All right. So just like that, we fixed that range problem. And now I'm going to go to the next line. Basically commands for the for loop, and I'm inside this for loop. I'm going to say if number, again, modulo divisible number. That's the divisible number, not count. There you go. So that's the that's the number that the third number that the user is going to enter equals 0. That means that if the number in this range is divisible by 0, right? The divisible divisible by the user number is going to equal 0. That means that it's fully divisible, right? We're going to say divisible count equals or plus equals 1. So basically what is going to happen, in case if you're confused, is that we're going to use a for loop and look at the range between the first number that user entered and the second number that user entered, right? And then we're going to say if the number in this range, any of these numbers in this range, is going to be cleanly divisible by the third number, the number that user entered, that means that it is divisible fully, right? You're going to add 1 to the divisible count. Simple as that, right? There you go. So we're pretty much done with that. So now all we got to do is just write the final statement. I'm just going to say print, and we're going to use an F statement. I'm going to say there are, and we're going to say divisible, we're going to use divisible count, all right? There are X numbers divisible by divisible number. Good job. There you go. All right. Between first number and second number. Here we go. So again, what is happening is that basically we're saying that there are, whatever count we have here, divisible by number, divisible number, that this is the number the user entered, and between the first and second one. So let's actually test this out and see how it goes. So I'm going to see if this actually is going to work. With the first number, I'm going to say 10. The second is going to be 20, and we're going to enter 2. Here we go. There you go. So that works. There are 6 divisible. Well, let's actually fix that. There are 6 divisible numbers. There are 6 divisible. I'm trying to make this like explain in a way that it's gonna make sense, like this sentence. There are 6 divisible, or there are 6 divisible numbers. There are 6 numbers divisible by, there you go, between, perfect. That makes more sense. Let's try this one more time. All right. So 10, 20, we're gonna say 2. There are 6 numbers divisible by 2 between 10 and 20. Perfect. That makes more sense. All right. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I see it's a pretty simple, thing if you think about it. We got a while loop that checks to make sure these numbers are correct, and then we have the, we have a divisible count, and then we use a for loop to see if these numbers are divisible by the number that user, specified. And if that's the case, we add a count to this, variable, and finally we display it using a print function. So that's pretty much it. Let me know if you have any questions, and let me know how did you do this like training. I know this is a little bit complicated, and you sometimes you got to think, but when it comes to programming, that is the whole point, is that you just have to think and be a good problem solver. And the way that you become a good problem solver is by doing these practices and constantly training and trying to figure things out. That's how you really learn programming. So let me know if you have any questions, guys. If not, I'll see you in the next practice.